next season, and that's very, very young. I mean, Pena's done great with the Houston Astros, but I actually think he was a little bit more ready. The hit tool's a little bit better at the moment than Anthony Volpe was at that same point. But Jeremy Pena has really shown that really good teams can go at the second most important defensive position after catching with a rookie, and I think Volpe will be up for the task. Now, Houston is much different than the Yankees. I mean, the bright lights and the crazy fans that are there. If you've never been to a Yankee game, you need to come. I mean, the old stadium was great, where everything and the under, you'd go get food and whatever, it all smelled like urine because it was an old stadium. It just, that kind of smell went throughout the whole stadium. But it was just a very intimate stadium and loud, and the new stadium is gorgeous, and they've got, I mean, you can buy a T-bone steak for $80 there, $120 probably now, with all the inflation on top of stuff, and sushi and all that kind of, it's almost too nice, right? The seats are more comfortable. Everything smells great. I like it. I mean, because it's a very nice ballpark, but the old ballpark was so much nicer. But it's still a great place to watch a game because people are screaming. They're really into it, and very smart baseball fans in New York. But they're tough on players. Volpe, if let's say the season starts on April 1st and he's not hitting what he should be hitting by by May 1st, he's going to get booed. There's just no question he's going to get booed. So that's a little different. Houston, I've been to games there. Oh, it's also a very nice park, very comfortable inside because it's enclosed. At least the time I went there, I think they can open the roof. I could be wrong there. But the time I went, I've only been to one game there, they had the roof closed. It was very, very comfortable. But, I mean, people are just nicer in Houston. They just are. I mean, just less in your face. That's New York versus other parts of the United States. And since I live in the New York area, I think I'm at liberty to say that. Number 5 is Masyn Winn, Masyn. He is a shortstop. He is with the St. Louis Cardinals. He's in Double-A, and he is 22 years old. He was 7 for 26, a home run, 4 stolen bases, and for the season, .310 batting average, a .379 on-base percentage, 6 home runs, 20 stolen bases, and a 20% strikeout rate and a 10.6% walk rate. What has been the improvement here is Masyn Winn, who's crazy tools, right? Massive, massive tool. Double plus speed. There's plenty of bat speed. And he can throw 95, 96. I mean, he is right up there with O'Neal Cruz in terms of arm strength. In fact, he was a pitcher in high school as well when he got drafted. And there was some discussion whether he would eventually go to the bump if he couldn't hit. But the good news is, where there was always concern about his lack of plate patience and striking out too much, that seems to be going very well this year. The fact that he's already in Double-A and only 20 years old, so one of the younger players there, that is very, very encouraging. So if that approach stands, I mean, there's a chance for 30 stolen bases. There's a chance for 15, 20 home runs. It's going to come down to how much he can hit. I mean, we're talking, what I tell you, 20 stolen bases for the year and 6 home runs. There's more pop in the bat there. So you could see, I think, easily a guy when he's 26, 27 years old hitting 12 to 15 home runs and 25 to 30 stolen bases. It's going to come down to how much he can hit. It's a very, very good prospect and should be owned in absolutely every fantasy league at this point, dynasty league at this point. Let me take a break, get back, and let's get on with the list. About 19 minutes. There'll be 4 segments on this show, just so everybody knows. So you want to stay around for the 4th segment because I'm going to talk about George Kirby and just looking at the data and comparing that to what I saw when he was in the minor leagues, and then comparing him to some very, very good pitcher. And I think you'll find it interesting because I'm going to break down a lot of stats and talk about some inside baseball stuff, in terms of what scouts are looking at, etc. So stay around for that. It'll be the last segment once I get through all of this. Number 6 is Evan Carter, one of my favorite prospects in the minor leagues. Unfortunately, I do not have him rostered anywhere, which I'm disappointed in. Vinny P, I think I tweeted out that I've been on the bandwagon for Vinny P since last year, and I absolutely own him in 0 leagues, and I just don't know how that happened. Fortunately, I think I had Bo Naylor, who when I saw him, I'm like, I should have picked him up in more leagues. This guy looks awesome. And I just realized I do have him in 1 dynasty league, so I'm excited about that. That means you've got too many leagues when you can't keep everything straight. Anyway, Evan Carter, outfielder with the Texas Rangers. He's in high A. He is only 19 years old. 10 for 22 this past week, a home run, 4 stolen bases, and for the season, 273 batting average, a 375 1 base percentage, 5 home runs, 14 stolen bases, and walking almost as much as he's striking out, 16% strikeout rate. I mean, there's plus speed, there's plenty of bat speed to suggest a 2020 player. He's had a really great season. And again, at 19 years old in high A, that's playing the game as one of the youngest players in the league. He's got the plus speed. He's got an advanced approach at the plate. There's plenty of doubles power. I think as he gets stronger and fills out a little bit, maybe the Rangers tweak his swing and add a little bit of loft to it. I think there's definitely 2020 upside. So he's another guy that must be owned in all dynasty leagues at this juncture, and a really good player. Number 7 is a kid that you might not have heard of. That is Oscar Kolas. He's an outfielder with the Chicago White Sox. He's also in high A, and he's already 23 years old. So here's Oscar Kolas, who is a Cuban immigrant in the same level as Evan Carter, and he is 4 years older than him. So that kind of gives you a sense for how young and how effective Evan Carter has been. They're facing the same level of pitching. Anyway, Kolas was 12 for 23, a home run, no stolen bases, a strikeout, and 3 walks. And for the season, he's hitting .313, .368, 7 home runs, no stolen bases. And he's got a 20% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate. He was actually signed back in January, again from Cuba. So he was one of the guys who had a defect, and so he had to go through the Dominican to finally get to the United States, etc. He's got huge plus raw power, and as long as he continues to make contact, I think he has a chance to be a full-time regular. The White Sox, as they do, I mean, they like bringing in Cuban kids, right? That's one of the things they do, and yeah, so they spent almost $3 million. I think it was 2.7 to be exact, in bringing this kid in. And I thought he would strike out more than he is, but if he can keep that strikeout rate in the low 20%, we're talking at least 20 to 25 home runs, maybe even more. There's not a ton of speed. He had more speed when he was younger, like many players do. But, I mean, as he's filled out, I mean, the speed has somewhat disappeared. So you might see a handful of stolen bases, but speed will not be a big part of his game. That is Oscar Kolas, Colas. So like in cola, except you add an S one to it. Here's a good guy that most people should know about, and he's not talked about a lot. That is Jose Ramos, Ramos. He's an outfielder. He is with the Dodgers. So go get him. High A, 21 years old. 6 for 19, 3 home runs, no stolen bases, 6 strikeouts, and 5 walks. And for the season, a 261 batting average, a 331 on-base percentage, 15 home runs, 4 stolen bases, strikes out a little bit too much, 28%, but a decent walk rate at 11%. Huge raw power with this guy, but unfortunately it's going to come with a lot of swing and miss. And this guy's got some of the best bat speed in the Dodgers organization, and when you combine that with serious natural power, you know, he has slugged 500 at each level he's played in, and it's pretty easy to project 30, maybe 35 home runs once he makes it to the highest level. His strikeout rate's going to average 25 to 30%, and you know, if the Dodgers can get that adjusted down towards the bottom end, he has a chance to not only be a full-time regular, but a Teoscar Hernandez type of huge power guy that's going to hit enough to get to it and be a very, very effective player. I have his fantasy ceiling sitting as a top 60 outfielder. I think if he hits more, that could be even higher. We talk about Robert Hassell all the time. Well, his buddy Zac Veen makes the list this week, and he is an outfielder. He is in Colorado. He is high A. He is only 19 years old. 6 for 17, a home run, 3 stolen bases this past week, 5 strikeouts and 3 walks. And for the season, 265 batting average, a 376 on-base percentage. You like that. I didn't write down how many home runs he had. He does have 27 stolen bases. I just went HR. So, sorry about that. 24% strikeout rate and a 14% walk rate. His carrying tool has been his great athleticism and his double plus speed, and he's got enough pop to be a 2020 performer. I'll say it again, when you compare him and Robert Hassell, Veen has got the more explosive tools. Hassell's got, the better hit tool. So it depends on how you like to play the game. I have a tendency to lean towards Hassell just because if you hit, you have a chance to play. But there's a lot of votes for Veen in that scenario too because he plays for Colorado. And it's not like he's going to be a bad hitter. He walks a ton, right? But there's going to be more strikeouts than you like. 24% strikeout rate is pretty encouraging. If he does a 27% strikeout rate in the big leagues with a 10 to 12% walk rate and hits 20 home runs with 30 stolen bases and hits 265 with a 340 on base percentage, it's going to be if not a first round pick, a second round pick. And I think that's the kind of upside we're talking about. Very, very good player. Okay, let's get into some of these low A guys that I'm sure many of you have never heard of some of these guys because I had to dig through them and do some research on some of them. The first one is Geraldo Quintero. He's a shortstop. He's with Atlanta. I believe he's Atlanta because I put AT, so I'm assuming I left off the L. He's in low A. He is 20 years old. He was 10 for 22, no home runs, 3 stolen bases, 4 strikeouts, and 6 walks. And for the season, a 272 batting average, 357 on base percentage, 4 home runs, 17 stolen bases, 15% strikeout rate, a 10% walk rate. This kid's athletic, really good understanding of the strike zone. The problem is he's only 5'8", so you expect a lot of guys 5'8" to not be very strong. And then you see, if you've ever seen Jose Altuve and his gigantic forearms, I'm not saying Quintero's got gigantic forearms, but they're in the team picture of Jose Altuve. So he's strong, right? And there is plenty of bat speed, so he's going to hit some home runs. He's only got 4 this year, but if you told me he was a 10 home run guy with his speed and athleticism, you told me he was a 20-25 stolen base guy, wouldn't at all be surprised. Again, he is a very young kid. Some analysts are going to downplay him because of his height. I know when I've talked to some scouts, many of them are size guys. I'm actually a physicality person. I like people that are really in shape. I fell in love with Jose Altuve 2010, 11, something like that. When I saw him in low A or high A, it was high A I saw him in. And that kind of did it for me with height. I get height on pitchers, but there's a lot of small players out there with tremendous bat speed and leverage and strength and really good baseball players. In fact, the ideal height is somewhere between like 5'11" and 6'2". That's kind of, sometimes you get these 6'4" guys with the huge levered swings and the big strike zones, and that could be a disadvantage. Little guys can be an advantage because the strike zone's just naturally smaller, harder to pitch to. But they're not as physically strong, and most of the times, and that leads to a lack of power and a lack of driving the ball. I don't think Quintero is going to have that problem. Very interesting prospect. You like the fact that he looks like he's going to be able to hit, deceptive power, and definitely plus speed. Omar De Los Santos. It's OMARDDE Los LOS Santos SANTOS. He's an outfielder. He's with the Mets. He's low A, and he is 22 years old. He was 9 for 20, a home run, 7 stolen bases, 4 strikeouts, and for the season, 279 batting average, a 331 on base percentage. So you know that walk rate is low. 9 home runs. You ready for this? 43 stolen bases. Here's the problem. So if you're driving, you probably just look down at the at your iPod and went, "What?" Yes, 43, 4-3.